I am Earl Bland, the Candidates Forum moderator for the Wyandotte County General Election 2020. I am with Business West, the lead sponsor of the forum, along with Kansas City, Kansas Community College. The focus of the forum today will be on races for the state Senate. The panelists who will be asking the questions are Mary Rupert of the Wyandotte Daily Online, Elnora Jefferson with the Historic Northeast Midtown Neighborhood Association, and Peggy Rios, a former community college trustee. Candidates will have 2 minutes for opening remarks. First, we will hear from an incumbent, Senator Haley. Senator, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Bland, and thank you, Mary Rupert, Ms. Jefferson. Thanks each of you for allowing this forum. You know, we don't get together as often as we'd like to talk about the issues that confront not only the organizations that you so ably represent, but in this new time or this new season for how we interact with our constituencies and the values that we have, so much is lost. I'm grateful for this time, and I know that the other candidates are as well. So I am David Haley. I've been honored to represent in all of Wyandotte County, the 4th Senate District. It's unique in that because we're the only ones contained wholly in Wyandotte County. The 4th District is one of the most diverse districts in the state of Kansas. We speak almost 50 languages according to USD 500. And inside of that is an understanding that the cultural needs that are often overlooked at the state level, I try to embrace and try to represent across the economic and the social scales that engulf us, that average Kansans, that Wyandotte Countyans are represented. I want to be a voice and have tried to be a voice for over 2 decades that I've been honored to be elected. I try to be a voice for those that often do not. And many of who have met me say that I've kept that promise, and I hope to, if again, I'm returned to Topeka in November.
Thank you, David. Next, we will go to Jeffrey Pittman. You have 2 minutes for your opening remark, Jeffrey.
Yeah, now can you hear me? There you go.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Jeff Pittman. I've been a representative representing our Northeast Kansas corridor here for 4 years. Been proud to serve on numerous committees, including transportation, agriculture, public safety, veterans and military, and also serve in terms of technology committees, because my background is in business, is in supply chain engineering, is in technology that helps companies deal with supply chain disruptions, much like we're experiencing during this pandemic. I grew up here. I went to Leavenworth High and graduated from the public school there and took that on to MIT and Oxford, where I got my engineering and master's in business degrees. I brought my family back here, and I'm a huge supporter of community colleges as an avenue as we start this forum. And I want to mention that I appreciate the role that all of you do in terms of advocating for the community college and having it as an avenue for those who might want to go into different skilled trades, want to take it as a pre-step into other university work, want to develop their minds further in later life. These are all important things that help all of us, all of our community members gain access to education. And education is one of my top priorities. It's one of the things I fought for, because when I first started in the legislature, it was bad here. Braun was in place. There were tax experiment in place that was devastating our schools, devastating our finances, and we were borrowing from our road funds, et cetera. I mean, there was a lot going on, and I was part of that bipartisan group that helped fix that over the last 3 years. And now we're at a stage where we're going to have to face these challenges again. We're facing new challenges that we've never seen, and I'm hoping to take that level-headedness up to Topeka as your state senator, the great area of Wyandotte and Leavenworth, because it will cover Leavenworth, Lansing, Bonner, Edwardsville, and the western half of Piper. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to answer the questions. Glad you guys have put this together. Look forward to this forum.
Okay, thank you. Senator Braun, your opening remarks, and I apologize for the problems we had.
Oh, all good. Thank you so much. Appreciate being here. My name is Kansas State Senator Kevin Braun. I do live in Kansas City, Kansas, and I know many of the people on the line here that are working this forum. Just to give the others a little bit of history, I'm a 32-year military veteran. Fought in Iraq in 05-06 and was in Djibouti, Africa in the War on Terror in 2009-2010. I kind of had in my backyard the whole time. I was a member of the 35th Infantry Division that's here in Leavenworth. I'm speaking to you, of course, from Leavenworth, but I do live in Kansas City, Kansas. Deployed twice with the Kansas National Guard and served for you as my fellow Kansans. My master's degree is in business law from right here in Kansas, from Friends University. And I'm a member of St. Patrick's Catholic Church down the road from you guys right there. I am an advocate for community colleges. I had done a lot of work with that in the Education Committee and on Ways and Means to fight for funding for them. My business background is 22 years in the healthcare business, so I know a lot about the healthcare industry, and I know about the challenges that we face coming up. I'm going to be able to address those, I think, as well as anyone can in the Kansas Senate. As far as my committees, currently I serve on Ways and Means, where I am a chairman of a subcommittee for Veterans Affairs and was able to bring funding for the Veterans Affairs for the first time in years as a chairman of that committee. And as I'm the logical choice because of the 9 candidates in all of Wyandotte County on the other side, I'm the only one that can actually be the chairman of a committee. I'm the only one that can actually carry a bill in the Senate. I'm the only one that can really advance your issues. And I look forward to advancing issues for Wyandotte and Leavenworth County across the aisle that'll make Wyandotte County and Leavenworth County a better place to live. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. Next, we'll hear from Senator Petty.
Thank you, Merle. I'm Pat Petty. I'm the senator of the 6th District, and I'm running for re-election. And I want to thank Business West and the Kansas City, Kansas Community College for this opportunity to provide citizens with more information about my candidacy. I'm a mother, a grandmother, and a retired 36-year public school educator. The thousands of students that I taught during my career in the Turner School District serve as my motivation to continue to work for quality education, access to health care, and support for Kansas families. Our state is facing a significant economic downturn as a result of the global pandemic. And Kansas needs legislators that will work in a civil manner with the governor to ensure economic stability. This relies on protecting our investments in job growth services like education at all levels, affordable quality childcare, the Eizentara Legacy Transportation Plan, and healthcare. You know, Kansans expect their legislators to practice civility. If we do this, we can move forward. I can and will work with Governor Kelly and legislators across the aisle to problem solve and to make the right decisions for Kansans. As I said, we need to fully fund our schools. We need to pass Medicaid expansion, rebuild our economic development programs, and use the unmatched Kansas work ethic as a foundation that will help our state to compete for businesses, jobs, and economic growth on a global scale. I'm asking for your vote, but the most important thing to do is for you to vote. In Kansas City, Kansas, we have many ways to do that. They are all safe. You need to choose the one that's right for you, but you need to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Now we'll hear from Diana Whittington. Diana?
Hello, and thank you, Mr. Bland and Business West, and also KCKCC for this opportunity to introduce myself to the community. I've been a member of this community for many years, a long time member of Wyandotte County. My name is Diana Whittington, and I am the Republican candidate for the 6th District for the Kansas Senate. I was born and raised in Kansas. I got my earned by teaching degree at Emporia State University. Have been teaching in Kansas City, Kansas for the last 41 years. 5 of those years were in a private Christian school. And I am a strong supporter of community college because I still am teaching, and many of our students take advantage of the partnership that we have at Washington High School with KCKCC, and it's a wonderful opportunity for them to get a head start on their college careers. And anyway, so I am a strong supporter of that. I am a widow, a mother of 4, grandmother of 10, and great-grandmother of 1. I believe in the sanctity of life from womb to tomb. And I also believe in a person's right to defend themselves and their life and their home. Believe in a person's right to protest as long as it is peaceful. I believe in law and order, and I support our first responders, our police officers, anyone who puts our military and all that put themselves in harm's way to protect us. I am a fiscal conservative. I believe in fiscal restraint. As a teacher and a parent, I believe that parents are the ultimate decision makers when it comes to their children's education, and that they should be the ones that choose the best educational options for their child. And for quite some time in Wyandotte County, we've not had a choice when we go to the polls. And so that is one reason why I stepped forward, is because I wanted to be a voice and give Wyandotte County people a chance to vote for somebody who shares their values. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now the panelists will ask the candidates questions, starting with Mary Rupert. Mary?
Thank you. The number of people who don't have health insurance in Wyandotte County a few years ago was estimated at more than 30,000 people. What is your position on Medicaid expansion to get more people here covered by Medicaid?
And we'll start the questioning with Diana Whittington. Diana?
Okay, thank you. This is a very popular question. And I am one that I am not convinced that Medicaid expansion is going to be the answer to all of our problems. I think maybe we need to look at it and make sure that we are researching and making sure that we know how many people would be taking advantage of Medicaid expansion. We want to make sure that we are not taking away, that we are keeping the promise to those that are on Medicaid, which is, the elderly, the disabled, our children, and pregnant women. We don't want to overestimate our ability to take care of those. And so I would want to make sure that we don't have healthy, able-bodied young people taking advantage of Medicaid expansion when they have the ability to work and have insurance of their own. So I think that one thing we need to do to help I am for lowering healthcare costs, though. That is a big issue. And so I think one thing we need to do is just provide more competition and allow young people the opportunity to have insurance policies that meet their needs and don't have coverage for things that they don't need. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Petty, your remarks.
Thank you. Well, I've been a strong supporter of Medicaid expansion for over 5 years now. And it's interesting, I just heard from the Kansas City Chamber just a few minutes ago about the number in Wyandotte County that Mary referred to, and that's 11,750 Wyandotte Countyans are uninsured. And if we just go across our state line, our state border into Johnson County, that's 10,000. That's a big gap for the working Kansans. And I think we just heard a minute ago, there is some confusion sometimes among those that haven't looked at it closely, but Medicaid expansion is for the working poor. And unfortunately, in Wyandotte County, we have many of those. Every dollar that's invested brings $9 back to Kansas. We've passed up over $4 billion. I can't even picture that number, but $4 billion by not passing Medicaid expansion. That is $1.8 million a day. Medicaid expansion is good for business because 150,000 or more employees will have access to healthcare, and healthy employees are better employees. It's good for families and it's good for job growth. The healthcare industry across the state will be able to employ more and keep their doors open. At least a third of our hospitals are vulnerable right now, and this would be absolutely a godsend for them. This is both a rural and an urban issue, and we know it's a big issue for Wyandotte County. Most Kansans support Medicaid expansion, and mental health and issues is an issue in Kansas, and Medicaid expansion can help with these services as well. I think there is the confusion about where these funds come from, and the funds that would allow for expansion of Medicaid expansion would not impact any other categories that are already under Medicaid. In fact, it might actually help us to reduce some of those waiting lists. Their businesses, citizens, leaders in the health industry, all health industries are behind Medicaid expansion. We passed up a great opportunity last year when the House passed it and the Senate could not. We need to move forward. And if this year doesn't tell us that, I don't know what kind of environment will do that for us. So I'm a strong supporter of Medicaid expansion.
Senator Braun, your remarks.
Thank you so much. And what's our, is this a 2-minute answer?
We'd hope you could answer it in 2 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know whether we were on timing. So I'm of course timing myself for discipline, but yeah. So in this area, as I said when I came on, no one is more versed in this after 22 years in the medical industry than I am. And no one cares more about it than I do. And no one's done more about it than I do. While many are looking for a pie in the sky $1 billion plan, when we look at the Kansas state budget and we say, how much is the budget? If you look at it as a pie chart and you're looking at $7 billion and you say, we're going to take on a $1 billion program. Over here, we have 23% of our total budget comes in these caseloads. And what they found in other states that have gone to these type of systems is it starts to crowd out your education funding and all of your other funding, because people will naturally do whatever you pay them to do. Now, I'm going to protect the promise to the elderly, the disabled, those who are pregnant women and children. I had a handicapped brother that never walked or talked or fed himself. We took care of him at home. He would have been eligible for Medicaid. I had an elderly mom, an elderly father. I'm not putting them in line in back of healthy people. So if there were a plan that said, we are going to have a separate plan, and the Affordable Care Act actually has that. I've sat in my office with insurance people that have sat and said, hey, these plans are out there for $100, $200, $300 a month for families, for low-income families to be able to get at this and to be able to have insurance. Now, a lot of people don't need insurance. What they need is health care. And so what I did is I brought Senate Bill 363 through the Ways and Means Committee. I requested to double the amount we're paying to indigent care clinics. So Mercy and Truth right there next to you in Kansas City, Kansas, St. Vincent's Clinic here. Now, I got pushback on the Ways and Means saying we can't double it. But what I did was I was able to raise it by $2 million. So we had a $7 million budget. I raised it by 2, biggest amount in history. I care deeply about those who cannot get care. And I'm willing to step up and actually put myself on the line and bring a bill to do that. And that's what I did last year. And I won't stop until I double the amount of funding for those federally qualified clinics. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff Pittman, your remarks.
Thank you so much. I'm not going to stand here and say that I have done more than anyone and that I know more than anyone on this issue. I do know what I know, and that's that there are people here who can't get to their insulin. They can't get to the health care they need. And there's been a blockade in the Senate for 4 or 5 years now. We did give, $4 billion, the senator had mentioned that we have given up on. That's a lot of money that could have been invested in our infrastructure before this pandemic hit. We know that it helps people. We know that it helps our workers get back to work. It's a workforce development tool that's supported by the KCK Chamber, the Lansing Leavenworth Chamber, the Greater Kansas City Chamber. It's supported by our hospital associations and the disability associations. I don't see how we say no to this other than for the sheer politics of it. If we would have put that extra $1 million in or $10 million in and gotten $90 million back from the federal government as investment, a lot of that going to our county here in Wyandotte, that's a lot of money that comes for jobs, it comes for healthcare for our citizens. It goes back into the community as workers making a good paycheck and reinvesting. This KCKCC is for people who are bettering their lives from maybe a minimum wage job sometimes and moving into a new career path. They often don't make more than $10, $12 an hour. They don't have access, and to make sure their needs are taken care of as they go, sometimes they need something that's going to take care of that chronic condition that they don't want to go to the emergency room for. This is an economic development tool that's good for us. It's good for Kansas. It's good for the city. It's good for your students here. I hope to support it. I hope we can get a change to allow us to take advantage of this very important workforce development and moral imperative that we have in front of us.
Thank you, Jeff. Now we'll move to Senator Haley for his remarks. Senator.
Thank you again, Mr. Bland. And let me just take a quick second of personal privilege. I was thanking you and Ms. Rupert and Ms. Jefferson for that, but I certainly didn't mean to overlook a dear and vital part in J.D. Rios, who I scrolled down. I said, I'm just getting used to Zoom. So I scrolled down and see that we have Mr. Rios as well. And thank you, JD. And I apologize. You know me to know is from my, not from my heart or head. It's just that I don't see as well. And part of not being to see as well comes with age. And part of age brings about the need to ensure that people have access all across the spectrum to healthcare. As has been said, I certainly appreciate two of the previous points that have been brought, and more articulately than I. But as someone who back 10 years ago during the Sebelius administration, when I was the ranking member for public health and welfare, and Senator Laura Kelly was also on that, we have pushed for a decade or more to ensure that the access to care does not equal a potential bankruptcy or an economic downturn. During this time of pandemic, if never before, I've had constituents who have been concerned about what the cost of a diagnosis or hospitalization would do to their bottom line. And philosophically, I think what we're hearing time and again are the different basic roles of what government should be. Now, for me, in the 4th District, here in Wyandotte County, I believe that the role of government should be to provide first and foremost for the general health and well-being. I consider healthcare to be a right. Others who are speaking this evening or today think it's a privilege. It should be afforded those through some gradient scale, maybe through the private sector, or perhaps through charitable means. I believe that every American, every Kansan should have access to care without it leading to them being economically challenged or broke. That is a philosophical difference, I'll admit, but I'll continue to fight for that as a state senator. Also, I believe that we also need to provide educational opportunities. The roles of state government are general services of well-being, you know, everything from supplementing federal programs to ensure that everyone can eat and have shelter. But that's beside the point. That's not the question right now. I won't get into the role of state government with law enforcement or even the highways. But right now, in terms of healthcare, it's a primary responsibility to ensure that our electorate can access, whether it's in a pandemic or every day, for themselves and their family, having access to care. And so I've supported way before it was popular during the Sebelius administration in Kansas, which was also the Obama administration, which led us to PPACA, or to the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, and we'll continue to support it. It bears repeating, as has been said moments ago by two particularly strong candidates on this, that we have lost so much in terms of the return that the state could have gotten to offset it until such point in time that our budget sustains it. There's no greater role that we have than to enhance our Medicaid. As far as I'm concerned, not only in the matrix that we have, but further beyond that. In closing on this point, I do wish my opponent, who I do know for a long time, he's a fine man. He really is. The only time that he called on me as a state senator to work with him before was because of his need to access, because he had a child involved with the autism spectrum. And we worked together because he was my constituent and because he was so articulate in his concern to ensure we could connect without bankrupting him or his family for access to healthcare, broadening, in this case, his need for healthcare. And I wish we could have had this discussion. I'd like to hear where he stands with it now that we have broadened to autism and the Asperger's syndrome spectrums. I'd like to see where he stands on it. I'm being consistent with what he needed me to do when he called on me as his state senator before, and where we are, where we stand together now. I'm getting the signal. Be continued, but thank you for support Medicare expansion.
Next, we'll go to our panelists, and the next person will be Elnora Jefferson. Elnora, your question.
Okay, thank you very much, Merle, and thank you for the candidates who are attending today's forum and giving me and giving others opportunity to ask questions that we feel are important. I'm going to ask a question that I asked yesterday at the state rep forum because I believe the question is pertinent. In the light of the ongoing pandemic of racism and police brutality in America, how would you address this issue in the Kansas legislature? And in giving me your answer, would you mind also just putting forth a little bit of education in whether or not the Senate role, your role as the senator, is different from the role of the House representative as it relates to this issue? Thank you.
We'll start with Senator Haley. Senator?
And Merle, are you going to time us? It would really make sense if we stuck to our 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll encourage that.
Well,
Senator Haley?
So what is, because this is certainly an area very close to me, what is our time constraint? Is it 2 minutes?
2 minutes, please.
Okay, all right. Well, again, this is one that I might run a little long on because the issue of systemic racism from within, not just Wyandotte County or not just within Kansas, but nationally, has been an issue very close to my heart for many years. And we don't often, in bipartisan non-fashion, get the awareness or the assistance that we need. This is interesting. Sometimes we have people from across the board who recognize the issue of mass incarceration that has been brought about primarily due to people who are, as has been said by our district attorney, Mark Dupree, who knows what he's talking about as well, either Black, brown, or broke. And inside of that is the recognition that systemic racism, as has been highlighted, has a tendency to discount based on race or color, how we treat all Kansans. And so I've introduced time and again hate crime legislation that has not been passed by Democrats or Republicans, and that would enhance sentencing for those who select their, if you will, victims based on some perception of bias, like we saw in Johnson County at the Jewish Community Center and beyond. I've introduced body cameras to be required for all law enforcement that are running, so we don't have to rely upon our citizenry to let us know with a cell phone, usually, where there is something that's completely in line with law enforcement or completely awry. I've introduced deprivation of rights under color of law, which is a concept where law enforcement will oftentimes flash a badge and take away a civil right, usually on those communities that are less empowered to respond. I could go on and on about how we get more justified, race-neutral enhancement society. I'd like to talk about the economic side too, to enhance communities of color. But I want to yield the balance of my time, if any is left, so that I can hear from as we can all will learn from the remainder of the panel.
Thank you, Senator. Next, we'll hear from Jeff Pittman. Jeff?
Thank you so much. I appreciate the question, and thanks for keeping this issue, relevant here. We look at the role of government and what we can do as a state, what we can do to counter what's going on in terms of systemic racism. And to do that, we have to be aware. We have to look at metrics. We have to look at hotspots of things, of people of color being stopped. We have to look at our incarceration rates. We have to look at those who are more likely to be put away for prison versus getting divergence. We have to look at all these metrics and understand that there is an issue afoot. There is an issue. We've done a lot in this country, and I'm very proud of the strides we've made, but there is so much more we can do. We need to be able to say, hey, what can we do better? What can we do to unify our communities and understand that we need to all be treated equally? I'm on the chair of the NAACP. I am the chair of the NAACP Criminal Justice Reform Committee here in Leavenworth. And with that, I look at things that we can do. We talk about body cams should be required, but we also have to look at how long do district attorneys necessarily get to hold on to cases before they start issuing a verdict on what they're going to do? How long do we let body cams and video footage stay hidden away? We've got to look at those and say, what do we want to do? Do we just want to advocate that to the individual departments or not? So we have to first recognize that there are issues, which I believe there are. We have to look at metrics. We have to be willing to talk about policies. We have to look at access to defense attorneys and look at as Senator Haley had said, look at the access to, the economics of the situation. I'm on the Public Safety Committee. We've looked at the budget for those who are indigent and don't have defense attorneys. That budget's been starved over the years. I advocated and we got increases on that because I think that's a tragedy where people are being encouraged to plea out and to get the quick verdict because they don't have the time to meet with their clients and find out, are they actually guilty? Do they understand the implications? And that does affect people of color statistically much more often than others. And so we need to look at that. And I asked for a full report and analysis and a strategy to look at that by that department this last year.
Thank you, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Now,
I hope that we can continue to talk about this as a state. And just one last thing. I know it's time, but as a senator, the question was asked, what's the difference in the role? And that difference from a House rep is that we cover a broader area. We cover, for me, the four townships of Leavenworth, Lansing, Bonner, and Edwardsville. And each of those has different police departments and different ethnic backgrounds and makeups. And so you do have to look at it from a broader perspective of your district as a senator versus a rep.
Thank you. Senator Braun, your remarks.
All right, so we might have a David Haley contestant there at 3 minutes and 25 seconds. Kidding, of course. All right, so when we look at this issue, I've been a little bit spoiled. So 32 years in the military. I got in when I was 16 between my junior and senior year of high school. And I'll tell you, as a Midwest kid, we didn't have a whole lot of interaction initially, but ever since that time, since I've been 16, the person next to me, no matter what color they were, no matter what their gender, they had to do the same number of push-ups, sit-ups, run. We had to work together. So for me, a little bit of that is gone. I'm not saying I'm colorblind, but I've always had to work in that environment. In a Fortune 100, Fortune 500 company, we've always had that. So they've applied those rules. And we do need to make sure, there's 10 people on this call right now. There's no racists on this call. I just don't believe there is. I don't believe that our country or our state is inherently racist. I don't believe our police departments are inherently racist. I believe we have individuals that clearly have challenges, and some very misinformed individuals about how to treat others. So those people exist out there. I just don't believe that it is the majority. When we have crimes and people make mistakes and do those things, we need to be able to address that. When I look at Black Lives Matter and I look at these different organizations, I believe that all Black Lives matter from the womb to the tomb. And if we create a culture where life matters and we treat each other well, if we teach people that from birth and from conception and from pregnancy, that people have value, that humans have value, then we treat people with value all the way through their lives. We've kind of created a little bit of a societal problem there where we've not valued life. And so in that community, we need to value life. Although the Northeast, I've talked to David Haley about this. It isn't specifically my district, but I believe that if we fix the Northeast, we fix Kansas, and we can address a lot. We need to create economic opportunity because David's right. We don't have enough economic opportunity up there to make sure that people keep jobs, people are employed, and that people have a good quality life. There's a lot that needs to be done. I had done a forum this summer, reaching across the aisle on race, brought a national speaker in to kind of connect people from Wyandotte County and say, hey, this is how I feel about statues of leaders who actually kept us imprisoned, right? It's important that we take a perspective where we put ourselves in the other person's shoes and that we consider all that. But I think we're at the beginning of a really big conversation on this. I look forward to embracing that conversation. For me, the police, I believe we have great KCK police, the Leavenworth police, the Leavenworth County Sheriff's Department, the Wyandotte County Sheriff's Department. I think they're fantastic. We don't see the inherent things in there. We may end up with an individual that goes awry, but I think we're very blessed to live in Kansas, and especially in the Kansas City, Kansas area, because these are lesser issues. We have a lot of issues to deal with. And I think from a standpoint, Elnora, we know we got to work for the education part. We've got to fix public education, especially in Wyandotte County, to get us to where we want to be. Thank you so much, Merle.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Petty, your remarks.
Thank you. Well, Elnora, thanks for asking this question. And in fact, there were multiple parts of this question. So I want to start first with the response to the pandemic. And I want to say that I believe and I support the governor and Secretary Norman. I think they've done an excellent job. The goal from the beginning was to protect all Kansans. And unfortunately, COVID-19 has been made such a political issue that there has been so much change. And I think that's caused a lot of unrest for people. A lot of turmoil. In fact, I just heard a little bit ago that, for example, I taught in the Turner School District, and although KCK is virtual for the first 9 weeks, Turner was hybrid, but yet I heard that the school that I last taught at Oak Grove is now going to be virtual for the next 2 weeks because of the number of COVID cases that they had among students and teachers. So that again just shows that this is a continually changing environment. But we have to treat it as a health issue, not a political issue. One of the things that I have said for myself is that I'm not a person of color. And so that means I have not walked in your shoes. And so I have not had the same experiences. And I think that that's for me, and I'm going to say, I think for many people, it's something that I have to continually think about. And I do think that there is systemic racism. I sometimes think we don't even see it or are not aware of it. So that's why I think it's so important that we continue to talk about this issue and look at how, whether we talk about our police department, our sheriff's department, our fire departments, or any of our first responders, that it's continual issue of that they have training over and over every year to address this issue and to look at thinking about the things that we don't necessarily always see as being kind of a racial attitude. I do think one of the things that's so important is that the people that are being most impacted are usually women and children. And in fact, I just read a statistic yesterday that 71% of women with young children are in the workforce in the country. And 54 of those women in the workforce, they don't have the choice of being in a job where they can work virtually. They have to go to work. So we have to address how are we supporting families? And that's why I am such a big supporter of early childhood education. Because if we want to talk about racism, if we want to talk about poverty, if we want to talk about our prison population, we have to look, how can we address this issue early? And how can we help families so that they have the skills and the ability to be the best first teacher for their children? And I think families embrace this, but they don't always know it's available. So we have to continue to work to make that available. We have some of those resources in Wyandotte County right now, but we need to have more of them available. We know that the populations in our prisons, they lack education. They usually have dropped out. They have at least 30% have mental health issues. And many of them come from dysfunctional families or from the foster care system. So again, if we look at addressing our issues early and working with our families early, and I think it's important to think about how can we offer to families as soon as they have a child, an opportunity to be a part of programs. So I think that this is an issue that has to be addressed. We have to continue to look at all the ways that every organization can be aware of their background and how it affects their thinking.
Thank you, Senator. Now we'll move to Diana Whittington with her remarks. Diana?
All right, thank you. I must say I agree with Pat concerning meeting the needs of our families, especially with young children. And I know we've had in the past programs such as Parents as Teachers and early childhood education. I know that we have things in place, but I think that could be increased definitely. And because I agree with her that we need to start young, and education is key. Also, we can all grow and learn and get better. And so I would support legislation that enhances and improves our police force to the best that they can be. And I think we kind of have a jump on some other states or areas, I'm not sure, but we have a state certified police academy here in Wyandotte County, which I believe holds our officers accountable and for their training. And so I think that is a plus that we have. But I do think that we can all continue to grow and develop and be better at whatever we're doing. And so for our law enforcement, I believe we need them to be able to evolve to meet the changing needs of our community. Thank you.
Our next question will come from J.D. Rios. J.D.?
Thank you, Merle, and good afternoon to the candidates. Having been on your side before as a candidate, I understand the time, energy that it takes to be a public servant, and so I commend you on your endeavor. Now, because it seems that our candidates have no problem with taking up their time, I'm going to ask a compound question. So let me dive into it. During last year's session, Community Care, the Hospital Association, and the Kansas Pharmacy Association advocated for the ban of pharmacy benefit managers, typically known as PBMs, and others for treating 340B covered entities differently from other pharmacies. It did not pass. Without such a law, discriminatory pricing reduces the services community health centers can provide to low-income and uninsured patients. Would you, if elected, support a ban on disparate contracting pharmaceutical pricing. Also, with COVID-19 and the economy as it is, both having outsized effects on minority, ethnic, and disadvantaged populations. Do you favor keeping the state's financial support for safety net clinics stable so that these patients can be served?
Okay, let's start with Diana Whittington. Diana?
I was afraid you were going to do that. Okay. Wow. That's quite a question. I'm trying to follow along, and a lot of that kind of went over my head, and I apologize, but I will learn about that. My favorite quote, Michelangelo says, I'm still learning. I said it wrong before. I'm still learning, and I still am. So I support anything which helps lower pharmaceutical cost. I believe that big pharma is making a killing on people, and I think that's been evidenced in the news. We see that how much it costs to make a certain medication, and that the markup that they have on it is astronomical many times. And so I am in favor of anything which would help lower those medicine costs, because I think a lot of times, especially our most vulnerable populations, our elderly and disabled, they really suffer with paying for medication sometimes in our low income families. Also, I am in favor of supporting and even increasing the funds for our safety net clinics, because I truly feel they meet a very important and valuable need in our communities. In fact, I would love to see more of them. So thank you.
Senator Petty, your response.
Thank you. Well, on the 340B drug pricing, that is a federal program, and it was created by Congress. It only can be used by certain providers that are, and mostly they're with the children's hospitals. So it does usually provide about a 23% discount for brand name drugs, and then it varies on as it goes down there for across the counter drugs. So I'm not quite sure where you were going with this, but that particular thing is a federal program, and we have a minority number of hospitals that are actually participating in that program. There are other drug reduction programs that are available to families. I'm sure you've seen plenty of the commercials. And I sit on the Health and Public Welfare Committee, and so I have worked for us to pass legislation to address the drug costs, but in many cases, it's not necessarily something that we can actually always control at the state level, but we can work with our congressional delegation to make that happen. That is an important piece to think about, another reason why we need to pass Medicaid expansion. When it comes to the safety net clinics, the safety net clinics were a victim under the Brown Pack administration, because their funding was cut, and we have worked in the last 3 to 4 years to stabilize their funding, and there have been some increases. I think the safety net clinics are invaluable. They fit an important need, but they are not a replacement for Medicaid expansion. If people deserve to have, working poor deserve to be able to have health care, and our safety net clinics can only provide certain things. They are not equipped to provide major care. They have to find other providers that will work with them. So I think we might hear even from others on this call that they want to see more funding for safety net clinics. I want our funding to continue at the level it's at, but I want to see Medicaid expansion passed. It will be.
Senator Braun, your remarks.
If I just real quick for clarity on my the first part of my question, the state does regulate the pharmacy benefit managers that oversee the federal program, and this was legislation in the state legislature that did not pass. So I'm interested in the incumbents being educated on bills that they have voted on.
But this legislation doesn't that legislation did not deal just with the 340B drug pricing.
That's true.
Thank you, JD. Senator Braun.
All right, this is one where I would like to use more than my 3 minutes, but I won't. So here, let's go through this. So for me, I tried to double this dollars for safety net clinics, JD. Not only that, but when I was on the floor and we were at the bill at the end of this session and the final budget bill, I attempted not to just double it. So when I looked at my original bill here, it would raise it from 7 million to 15 million in Senate Bill 363. I was able to pull off $2 million. I'm not going to quit till we get to the 15 million, JD. There are 231 locations throughout the state. So this is the map of the safety net clinics. I know that because I did so much research on it. I had people come in from safety net clinics and tell me about what they needed. I know how much each one of them gets. I know that currently, when we look at Mercy and Truth Care, they're only getting 113,000 and they're getting 229 at St. Vincent's. I'm going to raise that amount. You know what? You can say under a prior administration that they were cut. Under the Braun administration, they're going to be doubled, because over the next 4 years, I'm going to double the money for those safety net clinics because they do direct care. Our people that are on the street are not walking around with a copay card and choosing what their deductible is going to be. That's not how it is. They're people that need direct care. And I believe in those safety net clinics for exactly that reason. They're a safety net clinic. On the other side, we need to get people into employment. So we don't want to discourage employers. One of the things that an employer has to negotiate is they have health care as part of their employment. And it's a negotiation tool to make sure that people get back to work. So we don't want to take that away from businesses, because people may say, you know what, I'm choosing not to work, but I want to make sure to incentivize them to do that. We want to take care of the people. We would rather they worked. We would rather they were in a private system than a public system. For the pricing, actually, JD, and in the farm industry, I'm going to tell you it's very complex. We need the free market to compete on one side, and then we need on the other side, like here at St. Vincent's Clinic in Leavenworth, they actually get donated the pharmaceuticals from the pharmaceutical companies. If someone's indigent, these pharmaceutical companies reach out and they say, hey, we got a free market system that competes over here. But on the other side, what we do is we donate. If someone is indigent, you'll see the commercials all the time where they'll say, if you have trouble paying for your particular medication, please contact this number. Because the pharma industries know the competitive system drives prices down and quality up. And at the same time, they want to be good stewards and good citizens. And so what they do is they offer no charge or very reduced medications. I've been to the pharmacy over here at St. Vincent's. It's loaded with pharmaceuticals that are provided by those companies that we all want to hate, but they provide it because they know that at some level you need to have that. I'd be glad to talk to you about the payer business model. It is very complex. Senator Petty is correct. It's a federal program. And so there's a lot of complexities within that, but I would love to sit down and talk to you about that so that we can drive healthcare costs down in Kansas and make sure that we're taking care of the truly needy. Thank you so much.
Jeff Pittman, your response.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I work with the St. Vincent's Clinic, and I know their pains up there, and those folks are fully supportive of Medicaid expansion to help them. They know that they can help treat more people, and for that dollar they spend, they can get $9 more from the federal government. That motion to move money into those safety net clinics was at the expense of the Medicaid expansion money that was allocated, basically to strip out from our budget the funding that was allocated by the governor to potentially pay for Medicaid expansion if the Senate had gotten past the many roadblocks that were put in place. So the indigent clinics, they would benefit. I
think he froze up.
They'd have to go in and get themselves certified to get Medicaid. Sorry, can you not hear me?
We can now. Go ahead.
We can now. You might have to repeat what you said.
What part did you not hear? I mean, what part did I drop off at?
I think you came back, right? I think you came back.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll talk about the 340D. You know, one of the biggest crimes in this country is that our pharmaceutical prices are so high. When the president is even quoting the fact that Canada and Mexico have so much lower prices, you look at the 340D program, which is a rebate program for the Medicaid, Medicaid rebate program. We need to have state oversight to make sure that these pharma companies are not overbilling our Medicaid providers and, sticking it to the Medicaid provider. And we do need oversight to make sure that those discount prices and the rebates they get are not inflated. In fact, we need to do more as a state, as a federal system to control the pharmaceutical industry. Now, I know my opponent works for the pharma industry, and I know he's got a certain position on big companies and how, as an incentive, healthcare is it's a valid point. It is an incentive for workers to get back to work. Unfortunately, not all companies are like that. Not all companies are multinational companies that can afford an insurance program or are big enough to add that in as an incentive. A lot of people work here in Wyandotte County on a minimum wage or a slightly above minimum wage basis and need access to affordable healthcare. And these pharma prices are out of control. And we also need to look at Medicaid expansion as a way to get them better healthcare.
Thank you, Jeff. Now we turn to Senator David Haley. Senator?
Thank you again. Thank you again, Mr. Rios. As it bears repeating that we do collectively would like to see how we can lower the cost of access to care in general, and specifically to those scripts, those prescriptions that are made for whatever the pharmaceutical need might be. And for those of us who have tried for many years, and I was looking while we were talking right now, there's so many people that are relying, certainly in my community, my district, on those supplemental cards, the small cards that are handed out that one can use to lower just a little bit what their cost might be. Why? Again, because they don't have basic health coverage at all. And because they don't, they're not Medicaid eligible, or they have to really foot the bill on the copay and are ill-equipped to do that. Let me say about the safety net clinics, I'm a big fan, and I weighed very gently into pitting one against the other because I've got, Swope in my district, which does a phenomenal, Duchesne and Mercy and Truth. And many of my constituents are having to go and to rely on these safety net clinics and others. There's another one I'm forgetting right now, but they're having to rely on
Vibrant them. Health.
Vibrant, thank you. Yes, up there off of Minnesota. Yes, and I'm grateful to them because we wouldn't have any access at all, except perhaps through emergency rooms at KU or Providence. And wellness checkups are so important, and that's the only place to our safety net clinics that we can go. So I don't want to pit one against the other, and I won't do that. I was concerned when the bill did come out, and it, as has been mentioned, it was taking what would have been a recommendation for expansion to further fund the clinics, because I kind of wanted both. And in terms of, me and how I feel about big pharma, and which leads to other societal ills like the opioid crisis. As you know, or many do know, I'm the only one that have supported alternates to big pharma, like medical marijuana. I'm the only sponsor, have been in the Senate for years. As we watch all around us in other states, we adopt that the access to alternatives beyond big pharma for access to easing a variety of aches and pains. Why we still in Kansas have not adopted that when all around us, every other state just about has, is beyond me, but hopefully that'll be addressed. So I guess I didn't give a clear answer to the question, because I do weigh in on both sides. I have. This is one of those areas where I'm certainly supportive of expansion and what it will mean for those who can access, but I also want to ensure that we not only fund at the current levels, but perhaps enhance what we provide for our safety net clinics as well.
Thank you, Senator. Now we'll go to Mary Rupert for our next question. Mary?
Thank you. Unemployment was listed as over 9% in Wyandotte County in the August totals. So if federal funding runs out for extending benefits, would you support the state extending benefits on its own? And what would your priorities be for state funding regarding housing assistance and help for small businesses to stay open if the federal funding for these programs is eliminated?
We'll start with Senator Haley. Senator?
Thank you for that question. Let's unpack that a little bit. Absolutely. This is my 25th year in the legislature, and this has been the busiest off-season, if you will, that I've ever experienced, of course, because of what has occurred with the Department of Labor and unemployment, many people during the course of this pandemic needing to access that. And I wonder how deep the well is. I know that many have wanted to limit the awards that we've had in years past for those who have paid into the system and who could not have foreseen that they would need to go on unemployment. And I should really probably chronicle some of the very sorry, beginning with my neighbor 2 doors down who lost her job due to COVID. So, and has not yet gotten a full disbursement, did get the stimulus, the federal stimulus, but not the unemployment. So how deep is that well? How sustainable will our Department of Labor be when it finally gets its act together, an act that is only remiss because we failed in a previous administration to keep this department in line or to get this department ready? I certainly supported what Secretary Garcia was doing. I do know other states are grappling as well, that we're not alone in this country for that. The second part of your question, so yes, I hope that we can continue to sustain for the number of weeks that people take to get through this pandemic, those who have been marginally or gainfully full employed to supplement that as they get through these difficult times. Secondly, as for housing, and perhaps I should ask you to ask the question in terms of what the point was regarding housing again, please.
Yes, it was about housing. What if, what would your priorities be about the state providing funding for housing assistance in case, federal funding runs out, and also if small businesses funding for that runs out? What should the state do?
I have not thought about that. I certainly have people who are facing eviction right now, who I've talked to as well, and I have not had an answer. The state does not have a program in place. I mean, what has traditionally been the course is from the federal to the local governments through HUD to our housing authority. The supplement that might be provided to those who are landlords or to the banks who are asked to forgive or forestall mortgages, what role we might play, the state might play in assisting those banks or those mortgage holders is something that I have not known or have not seen, but it's certainly something I hear about. I have neighbors who are being evicted now that live 4 doors down. They're being evicted for not having paid their mortgage for 2 months. And I just don't know, or would like to know. I'm looking forward to some other insight from my fellow candidates or panelists as to what we might do at the state level to stop that from happening, because it hurts me to see it happen.
Jeff Pittman, your remarks. Jeff?
Yep. Thank you so much. You know, oh my goodness, I keep my internet connection keeps going out here, so I apologize if I digitize a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and start off and let me know if I need to repeat. You know, the unemployment has affected so many folks. So people who had never believed that they would need to take advantage of unemployment have called me as they tried to navigate the system of so many slowdowns early on in this process. So many calls in that were not answered, so many times they tried to log into the unemployment system, was not working. And they started realizing what a hassle it is. They didn't want to need to be there. And yet they started realizing that sometimes unemployment is a necessary thing. Sometimes that safety net is there for a reason, and people needed to feed their family. This has been monumental in terms of people understanding that it's not always a choice that people don't have a job. Sometimes it's an unexpected tragedy or situation that hits them. And so, you know, as we move forward, I've been very impressed lately that our unemployment system is working. We still have, you know, 25,000 folks that are still on backlog. And we, you know, as part of that joint technology committee, we're pushing for that for them to reduce that. But we have to watch out for fraud, because that's the ugly beast that's also occurring in the state, is that a lot of people's identity are being stolen, and people are attempting fraud in the system. So there is a slowdown. There were some missteps, but I'm happy to say that the vast majority that I've worked with, and I have worked with a lot of folks to help them navigate the PUA, the unemployment system, how to get to a PPP loan for their business. These are all things that have helped us get through this point, and I encourage Congress to continue to push and to help us get through this as a state. But you're right, it might not be there. It might not. And what are we going to do? I think that we, as a state, we need to have policies where we give businesses some more access to capital, to loans, for small businesses to stay open and to help our economy move forward. I mean, I'm endorsed by the Greater Kansas City Area BizPAC, and the reason they've endorsed me is because of my pro-business attitude, the understanding that we need to get back to work safely, that we have to understand that liability is a challenge for small business owners. They have to have access to capital through this, but we also have to incentivize safety standards for the workers out there. When it comes to housing, you know, I've recently endorsed, or I shouldn't say endorsed, I've written a letter of support for a grant for our local community here in Leavenworth to help landlords help stabilize rents for the workers and the families that need them. There was money available, and they needed it, and it hadn't been applied for years. And I worked with a new local rental coordinator, and I said, why don't we do this? This sounds like a great thing for our community, and get access to that. Maybe it's $100,000 that comes in here to help our community and help those renters. Unfortunately, the state's going to be in a financial situation. I'm not sure how much money is going to be there to help with the housing authority, to Senator Haley's point. What are we going to do there? I mean, we've restricted the number of evictions that can be served, but that falls on the back of landlords. We need to come up with something that, and policies that maybe defer some of those payments for those landlords, maybe helps them stabilize their losses, maybe put some kind of tax break in there for when they have those types of losses for the pandemic. I'm not sure yet, but we're going to have to be creative, and I'm willing to go to Topeka for our Wyandotte community and Leavenworth community and figure out what's the right thing to do that helps both those that are renting as well as those that have houses that they're renting out to others.
Okay. Senator Braun, your remarks.
All right. So I find it incredibly interesting. We're worried about wasting $1 billion, but that's $16.5 million. It didn't go anywhere. It could be helping safety net clinics right now. So I enjoy listening to my opponent say that we would be We're stealing money that could otherwise be used when 16.5 million would have been in those safety net clinics right now. Sorry, JD, it's not there because they didn't support my bill. Let's go on to homes. This is very funny because we just talked about pharma, and my opponent's family owns multiple homes. He even owns rental homes here. So he has a problem with pharma making money, but he wants a program to support landlords so that the landlords can get paid. What he's talking about is $100,000 to himself. Now, do we need programs? Yes, we do need programs. We need the program at a federal level. For my part, I wished that it had started at an amount and that it had gone downward so that if someone started getting $600, it would go 5, 4, 3, and down. The state cannot fund that, right? So it's a federal program. We got $1.25 billion in our COVID funds from the federal government. We're scheduled to be about 1.2 billion short. The whole concept of that was that you would get the funds from the feds and that they would be funneled to the need. I've been an advocate. I was very disappointed how long it took. I feel bad because I, as a legislator from Wyandotte County, could not make it happen myself. But the governor made a Spark committee. She's got a very tough job, and I understand it's a very tough time. But the goal was to get those funds as fast as possible. They did not get them fast enough to Wyandotte County. Wyandotte County, when I did the math for the 1.25 billion, we're 270 million people. It's about $480 or something like that per person. Those funds, that spigot should have been turned on right away so that we mitigated the effects on the local economy right off the bat. Unfortunately, we waited too long. And so now the funds are getting out in these programs, and the programs actually aren't even fully, we haven't sent out those funds. So I know it's a challenge, it's a logistical challenge, but we do have to do a better job of balancing those two out. As far as making sure that I'm not going to put a cap on landlords. My opponent's father-in-law would go crazy. You can't say that a house, every house you rent, there's nothing more fundamental than housing, but you can't say that every house that you rent costs exactly the same. You let the free market do a portion of that because my opponent deserves with his rental houses to make a reasonable profit from a market share. And then there needs to be government programs that cover those who are indigent that can't afford that housing. So there's two segments to the market in the free market system. We do want to take care of people, but at the same time, we can't just point a finger. Every market that we say should be socialized, medicine should be socialized, drugs should be, housing should be socialized. Do you really want to move all of that out of the hands of private citizens who are making good decisions and staying employed and making investments and living the American dream to the government? I don't. Thank you so much.
Okay. Senator Petty, your remarks.
Thank you. Mary, you have a multifaceted question here that you're getting a variety of answers on. And I'll just touch real quickly on the CARES money. You know, as I think, and I know you all know this, but the money has to be spent by the end of the year. So the Sparks committee has had to do their due diligence about getting that money out so that it was actually going to where it was going to get spent. If it doesn't get spent, you know, right now, the feds are saying, hey, you got to turn it back. So everybody's feeling that responsibility for accountability. And that's part of that picture there. So to talk about how it should have come faster or whatever, you can't do something that you don't have. And then you also have, if you're going to be accountable, you have to make sure that it's going to places that it's going to get spent. Speaking to that, so here's a couple of areas that have just come out about money being spent that impacts some of these. And one of them is $40 million that's going for broadband for at-home learning. There are grants that are going out. The governor just established the Office of Broadband Development, and there's $50 million in grants that are going to underserved communities. So those are kinds of issues that in a roundabout way can help to address this unemployment. And then I think we also have to look at the economic development. What kind of economic development is going on right now in Wyandotte County. We've got the urban outfitters that are going to be, that are in the process of building a new location here, going to provide childcare, going to pay $18 an hour, 2,000 new jobs. So that's a piece of this. How do we get people back to work? How do we get them off of unemployment? I will just say our state system will not be able to carry people in a different way once the CARES money, once the COVID money's run out. We, we have to have a be stable and be fiscally sound there. So I don't see an expansion at the state level when it comes to unemployment. I do think there are some things that we need to do, and one of them deals with lockout. Representative Pittman mentioned about fraud under this, in this unprecedented time with so many people on unemployment. We are seeing up to 30% fraud. However, we also had a law, one of the most stringent in the country, where a person who had allegedly had fraud in the past would be locked out for 3 years. And many people faced that barrier and didn't realize it when it came to COVID and their jobs being shut down. The other thing is, I'm just going to go back to early childhood education and to support for families. The people that are being the most impacted are low-income workers. So when I hear somebody saying, hey, $600 a week is too much money, I say, hey, why can't they pay all their bills? Is it wrong because they're a low-income worker that they have to be totally indigent? No, it should not be that way. So I did not see that being an overreach. I think it helped families stay afloat. And if you remember that statistic I mentioned about that 54% of that 71% are women, and they are women with children, and they have no choice, that they have to be, they're essential workers, they can't work from home, then we know who's being the most impacted, whether it comes to housing, whether it comes to being, they're staying in their homes, or whether it comes to being able to put food on the table.
Next, we'll go to Diana Whittington. Diana?
Okay, thank you. Pre-COVID, our economy was doing very well. And I think, well, and one thing is that we're all in the same boat across the whole country. So I think we need to look at new ways to incentivize business in our economy, and to be able to open it up safely, as quickly as possible and safely. We need an equal and opposite program to repair the damage that COVID has done. And I am open to whatever plan that our governor comes up with to supercharge our economy, because I do think that the Eizentara legacy transportation, that's going to help to bring in the plan that was approved, and that's going to help bring in more businesses, I believe. It also, there was the broadband. With that, will also offer opportunities for more businesses to be welcomed and incentivize them to come to Kansas City and Wyandotte County. So I think there are some things in place that will help, but I think we just have to be creative in coming up with ways to help increase our economy, to improve our economy, to help people get back to work as quickly and as safely as possible.
Okay, thank you. Our next question will come from Elnora Jefferson. Elnora?
Hey, thank you, Merrill. This question is, I guess I'll start it off by the phrase of, I like in your answering of this question to consider inspecting what it is that you expect, to inspect what it is that you expect. There's an adage that talks about a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And in the area and what you serve, in the counties that you serve, and I recognize that there are a couple of gentlemen here who are serving out of 2 counties, but there may be areas in those counties that would be considered weak links, however that's measured, whether it's on an economic or community or some kind of human development type of area. There are, within the counties itself, there are areas that are more attractive to big developments because of land mass, or more attractive because it's virgin territory, or more attractive because of the cost of the infrastructure. My question is, as you inspect what you expect, if you are familiar with a concept called community benefit agreements, and if you are familiar with that concept, would you be willing to advance and to look at some of the state financial tools, whether they're STAR bonds or whether they're SSMIDs or whatever they are, to see how those tools can be leveraged and the conditions broadened in order to be able to help some of those weak link areas in the county? So, and I'm willing to repeat that or rephrase it because I know there was quite a bit in that question, but thank you very much.
We'll start with Diana Whittington. Diana?
Okay. I do not know anything about the community benefit agreement and inspecting what I expect. So what I am going to do is I'm going to pass on this one and sit back and listen and learn, because I do not know enough. I mean, I don't know anything about it to be able to comment on it, but I will learn.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator Petty?
Thank you. So when it comes to economic development tools, you know, I think that, and I know that and as you all know on this, I was a county commissioner, so I have worked at the local level as at state level. And I think we do have a lot of tools. I'm not, when you mentioned one was like STAR bonds. STAR bonds have been changed 6 different times. That legislation has been, and it's actually been under attack for the last 2 years of legislative session. So I think it started out really well, and it was a great tool for us in Wyandotte County. But it, you know, sometimes when people see things and they say it works for Wyandotte County, shouldn't it be able to work for me? And can I make it? Can't you make it different? Then it became sometimes there was abuse in that, in the use of STAR bonds. So I really think that we need to rely on, and I have a lot of confidence in. Like Greg talking with the economic development that's going on in Wyandotte County. And there are abilities to do things in certain, you're absolutely right, in certain parts of our county that you can't do in others. And it's a lot has to do with land use, about land, about agreements. And so I just think of so much of that is a lot of local effort. We've seen a lot of good things happen. We have a lot of not-for-profit groups that are at work in Wyandotte County and have done really good things. And I think that investment in them is the best way to go. So I think that there are economic tools there that are being used. That's why we've been able to bring urban outfitters. Now, you may have a question about the location, but of course a lot depends on land, accessibility, and what's available. So we're gonna, you know, we have to continue to, if a project comes along, see what we can do. Earlier, Diana mentioned the Eizentara transportation plan, and that infrastructure is always such an important issue. And I know I myself am often upset because if I see that there's been a lot of infrastructure improvements that's been done out west in the Piper area, and I live in Turner and have all my life, and I see that some of those same things like curbs and sidewalks have not occurred in my community. I'm wondering why, how's the investment and how it helps make a difference. So I'm not sure that answers your question, but I think the tools are there. It just takes a lot of work to make them happen.
Senator Braun, your response.
Thank you so much. So when I look at this, I want to make sure that we're not playing a shell game. So what we saw, Kansas City, Kansas did a good job with their STAR bonds. So that program was a good program, and I compliment my my fellow senators for whatever part they played in that. And so Kansas City, Kansas set kind of the model, but then some other people saw it and said, hey, we can borrow this money. It's low dollar money, and we're going to do some other things. and they weren't just focused on the project. For me, in Wyandotte County, my hope was that when the STAR bonds were paid off, that we would then reduce the promise was that we would reduce the cost on the rooftops. And what we've seen is that's not the case. So property taxes are still extremely high, and we did not see that break where they came back down. When I look at the other county that I cover is Leavenworth County, we've got the same situation where property taxes are high. We need to bring in economic development. And as the economic development goes up, as we get those businesses, we do have to push down the cost that we're charging for taxes and the tax rate on the individual homeowner. It's really important that we do that. So I support economic development. We have a lot of opportunity, especially in Senate District 5 is just fantastic. And to what you're looking at, Elnora, when you say we want to make sure to have these agreements, there are some community benefit agreements that actually do work really well. But you have to make sure that they're tight from end to end, where that when the benefit is made, that it has whatever the time period is and whatever they're going to exchange for. I believe that Northeast Wyandotte, again, it's not in my district, it's in David's district. We've talked about it a few times. If you fix Northeast Wyandotte County, although it's not in my district, that really saves the greater Kansas City area. That's where we're having those challenges. And I believe in we not just having west of 435 all these beautiful things, although we're very proud of what we have to make sure that the urban core also sees the economic rise and the benefits of the things that we bring into our county. Thank you, Elnora.
Okay. Jeff Pittman, your response.
Thank you so much, and thanks, Eleanor, for your question. You know, you pointed out the weakest link often determines the system, and it's true. But I will say that I don't consider these areas to be weak links so much as unpolished gems of opportunity that can be, once again, great areas, and respect the cultural differences and the cultural aspects some of those regions will bring, and their ideas of entrepreneurship and community, that they'll rise up and be strong. There's a great thing that's happening in Wyandotte County and the whole Northeast arena of Kansas. And I was honored to talk with Dave, the Secretary of Commerce, about that, and Dave Tolan. And it's about looking at our strengths and saying, okay, hey, how can we best incentivize at the state level programs and businesses, and see what we can do to attract businesses that are going to be have synergies with each other, synergies with the strengths of the area. I think destination points inside the Northeast quadrant of the area of Wyandotte County would be phenomenal, and development of those so that they can become attractions. I think the senator was right that the whole area has been one of the best stories of STAR bonds in the state. And we do need to keep metrics around. We do need to measure whether incentives are actually having the business development. I think in this case, they have. But incentives that the Brownback administration had, for example, they did not bring business. We don't need to bring businesses just across state line and call that business development. That's not the kind of business we need. We need to have businesses, and I support a master plan that basically looks across the county and says, how can we all benefit? How can we bring the whole up, not just certain areas? Because I think the senator was also correct. There is phenomenal business development opportunity and growth happening on the western sides. And we need to make sure, as he said, that the urban core and some of those historically, historic areas continue to grow.
Thank you, Jeff. Now we'll turn to David Haley. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Bland, and thank you, Ms. Jefferson. When the question came out, I remember used to watch a show called Welcome Back, Kotter. Some of you will remember, and one of the students, I think his name was Rochak or something, would raise his hand, ooh, 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 ooh. I was so anxious to get to this because the reason now in the last 5 years that I've run for office, and 2016 to retain this seat in the Senate, 2017 for mayor, in 2019 for the BPU, and now this year again for re-election, is because of this reason alone. The reason is, in my years, very clearly, it's almost like you can draw a chalk line. Wyandotte County is a tale of two cities when it comes to economic and social enhancement. There's a regional discrimination that permeates our unified government, and that is reflected in an indentured servitude almost from a part of this county that pays in but gets nothing back. A high tide should lift all boats, it has been said. But we continue to invest and reinvest in seeing, and I love Wyandotte West, Mr. Bland. I love the South by the Rosedale area. I love our county. I'm a native of Wyandotte County. This is my home. I just think that we need to show from the state and from the local government an interest in watching destination points grow. We remember the debate about Indian Spring and what to do in the heart of my district with it. What would the future be? I look at all the underdeveloped points we have where people would want to come to the Northeast quadrant, if you will, and not just out to Village West, which was created out of whole cloth, the Speedway, Village West, because of the desire to bring that. And I support what it has done. We're the #1 tourist destination now, the county, Wyandotte County is, in the state of Kansas because of the Star Bond investment. But now here we still go down this path after we have so many things, soccer fields and the dairy and the shopping and various areas in one part of this county, to continue to see that these community benefit agreements have not panned out for remaining parts of the county, especially the district I represent. So economic development is the core of why I keep running for office, that and lifting the burden of the high utility rates at the BPU, which just shift property tax burdens over to from the unified government to our utility bills, which too is a heinous, just one of the reasons it makes Wyandotte County almost unlivable. And I'll continue to fight for that on behalf of the people that live here who want to go to someplace and who are not just wanting a grocery store in the midst of a food desert, which we certainly need, but a place to go, a destination place to go. And finally, the Star Bonds are supposed to be revisited now. They're supposed to be coming back with a reutilization for what was the Schlitter Bond. I've read about them coming for hundreds of millions. But I'll tell you this, and I certainly want to be very careful, never say never. It's going to be a very difficult day for this Wyandotte County senator, if I'm reelected, to put anything up in a Star Bond or any other tip or special initiative for one small quadrant of this county, of Wyandotte County, when we continue and refuse to lift up other parts of this county. Even though I'll be from Wyandotte County and always be proud of Wyandotte County, I'm not putting any more state dollars or tax incentives or initiatives to out of county and out of state developers who zoom in, pick up the money, build their little fairy tale lands, and then boom out. And we haven't done anything for the people that live here. So I feel very strongly about this. A high tide should lift all boats. And I will say to our mayor and to our commission and to the BPU commissioners or members and to my fellow members, should I be reelected, that we have to continue this fight for the benefit of Wyandotte County's enhancement throughout. That's a commitment we should all be making, and quit marginalizing and using lands to only benefit and tax incentive tools to only benefit one part of our county and not all of our people.
Thank you, Senator. Now we'll go to the panel, and J.D. Rios, your question.
All right. In your answers, I'm wanting you to give specific commitments, if, of course, willing to do so. The first part of my question is, will you support and defend in-state tuition for our dreamers in the state of Kansas? And will you disavow white supremacy and institutional racism that negatively impact the lives of Black, brown, and indigenous Kansas, especially within education, within healthcare, and within our criminal justice system?
Let's start with Senator Haley. Senator?
I think that you could probably imagine where I'll weigh in on this one. I have instituted, I think, several years of legislation. Well, beginning with the Dreamers. I remember when the fight was being had at the state level. And I'd like to say, and I think the record will reflect that David Haley was probably at the forefront, probably one of the strongest voices to ensure that those who are in especially who've been educated from within our systems, who came through K through 12, would be able to stay in our college system and have in-state tuition. Why would we not want the brightest and the best to be able to remain in Kansas and for further education? And why wouldn't we support that? I mean, to me, it was just a logical extension of the pride we should take in all of our students, irrespective of color or creed. I supported, have always supported philosophically and personally that concept, and will continue to at the state level, and what little I can do to at the national level to assist those who are congressional delegation. Hopefully we'll have a U.S. Senator who's supportive if everything goes right, and Barbara Boyer, and then we'll have, of course, a congressional member, Sharice Davids, who has already weighed in support as well. And hopefully all of the members of our delegation who will come from. I think that some of the legislation that I alone have championed by way of sponsoring that will often have the core of looking at race neutral societies, or enhancing and ensuring that we don't see the imbalances that have been so widely magnified, sadly, in 2020 continue or be perpetuated in our society. It's sad, isn't it? For those of us who love this country, it's just sad that we can almost look at someone still based in 2020 on the color of their skin and know what level of justice in any given situation they're apt to receive, or how they're able to be set upon by outside, or who's going to be believed first as between two people. You know which one to believe first. If in any altercation. And that is something that as a proud American, as a proud Kansan, I have tried always. As a former assistant district attorney here in Wyandotte County, when we look at what puts people in harm's way, and knowing that it's often only the color of their skin, that I've tried to mitigate, and I would like to run off the different legislation that I've introduced that hopefully will help mitigate that, again, if I should return to Topeka in January. And I thank you for the question, JD.
Okay. Jeff Pittman, your response. Jeff?
Yep, sorry about that. I was trying to find the unmute button.
Okay.
Yep. So, the question is, do we, are we willing to, back up and support in-state tuition for the Dreamers initially? One of the people who campaigned for me early on was one of the Wyandotte reps, Representative Wynn, who stood up to people in the legislature who really they called her racist for standing up for what she saw as inherent racism and penalizing the Dreamers for getting in-state tuition. She saw legislation that was harmful to that. She knew that I'd be a supporter of allowing that to continue, of supporting, those folks those kids who came here through no fault of their own and are here and who can add value to our society and are just looking for an education. We are a country of immigrants. We do need better paths, understandable paths to citizenship. And I do support us being able to offer a good, affordable education to those folks, those dreamers here. I think the other part of the question was, do you stand against white supremacy? And yes, I stand against white supremacy. I'm lucky to have grown up in a military town where my dad taught me the value of different viewpoints and different backgrounds. And I think that it's absolutely true. When people go to war, they don't see their fellow soldier as a color, but as an ally, no matter their skin color. And that permeates through the community that I grew up in. And I bring that to the state legislature. And so, yeah, and I recognize, as I said before, there is evidence of institutional racism, and we need to look at it and look at ways to combat that. Some of that is just through better education, better bias training, better viewpoint, understanding your own viewpoints, understanding the viewpoints of those that are you're looking at and encountering. I am endorsed by the Wyandotte County Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 4, as well as the sheriffs. But I'm also part of the NAACP up here in Leavenworth, and I was one of the only legislators that joined in the Unity and Community March that said, hey, look, we know there are issues and we stand to correct those. We stand as a community, police, religious institutions, NAACP, citizens of all colors, and we stand unified against racism in our area. We don't want that specter here. And so I guess that's a long-winded answer maybe, but I'm passionate to let you know I value the viewpoints of others, and hopefully that helps you understand where I'm at with this question.
Thank you, Jeff. Now we'll go to Senator Braun. Senator.
Thank you so much. So when I look at this issue and I say we're going to give a pathway, this is really a federal issue, right? So we need a federal answer. And I won't get too political. I know that the president wanted to get a program for dreamers. It was a political football on the other side of the aisle. They didn't want to allow him to have that. Ultimately, we have to come up with a solution to that. And I hope that that solution comes in the next 4 years. During my next 4 years in the Senate, I would be an advocate for finding a formula. And so, JD, you got to ask, what exactly is the standard? So do you see a world where we have unlimited people coming in from every state and all of them get unlimited access to our education system? Because I can tell you what would happen then is that we wouldn't be able to afford, our education budget would blow up. So I would say there needs to be some set of standards, again, for a child that has by no fault of their own, they're in the state of Kansas and they grew up here. So there's going to have to be some rules or thresholds rather than just saying we're throwing open the floodgates and everybody from New York, everybody from California, everybody from Texas, just come on in and you all get this rate, because that's going to hurt our higher learning institutions. I know I voted to increase funding for them last year, but there's going to become a point where it starts to push on that 23% of Medicaid services and the 62.9% of education, K through 12 education funding. So the money has to come from somewhere. So I'm absolutely open to looking at formulas so that those kids that are from Kansas can get in-state tuition and that we have a standard to do that. But to just generally say, hey, anybody who comes here under any circumstances from any country or was taken here by your family automatically gets it is, I think it's, and I don't mean this in a harsh way, it's just kind of naive to say you can't figure out what the balance would be. So I would definitely say, let's come together with a funding idea of how we're going to fund that, what the amount that you're looking to have is, come up with some predictability numbers. And JD, I'll sit down with you and do it. And we'll look at what somebody could do for Johnson County Community or Kansas City Community College, Johnson County Community College, Obviously, UMKC would cover themselves on the other side of the state, KU, Manhattan. We can look at that. But you'd have to have a predictability number, because what would happen is when you incent somebody to do something, they're all going to come. And so that's what we have to look at. If it's a truly Kansas citizen, someone who's been here for a long period, really by no fault of their own, I'm completely open to coming up with ideas. Now, the concept of, and you laid out a concept, and there's a presupposition that we know that there are racists. We talked about that earlier. I categorically condemn racism. I'm from the party of Lincoln. Our whole foundation was on abolition. I believe in the original formulation of the NAACP. I do believe in making sure that as we go forward, it does end up being a color neutral society. And we are clearly not there yet. This country is a vision. It's not a destination. And we've got to work toward that. So I will categorically say that I condemn any racist organizations or racism at all. And I do believe, from what you said in the area of education and healthcare, there's work we do need to do to balance that out, to make sure that there are equities across racial lines. Thank you so much, JD.
Senator Petty, your remarks.
I'm going to start off, I'm sorry to say this, but we are closing in on 2 hours here, and I don't think anybody's going to watch this. So I'm sorry that we have not been able to, that there's not been a timer and we've not stuck to the time. I think it's very disappointing for us as participants and also for the listeners. So that's my critique of this forum. Sorry, Merle, but we should be staying to some standards here. So I'm going to be really short here. One, I have always, and I will continue to support and defend in-state tuition. And we have it in place and it's going to stay. And, you know, I've always said, if we have children that are living here, that are going to our schools, and then when they get out of high school, we say, oh no, you are no longer considered an in-state tuition student. We're holding them to the same standards as anybody else that they've graduated with. It just makes sense. And as someone said earlier, we want them to stay here. We want them to get an education. We want to have an educated workforce. That is one of the biggest problems in Wyandotte County. We have one of the lowest educational levels when we get beyond high school. And whether it's community college or whether it's at a four-year degree or beyond. And we have to increase that if we want to increase the pool of workers that are filling these jobs that are coming into our community. So we need to have a qualified workforce, and this is just another tool there. You know, when it comes to institutional racism, it's something that we all have to address all the time. I am a supporter of LGBT, race, gender, or who you love. And the country, you know, I said this the other day, the country is changing and all you have to do is watch an hour of TV, whether it's a commercial or whether it's a program. Families are all colors together, and this is our world. We need to accept it. Just because someone does not look or love like me does not make them wrong. And I will end with that.
Thank you, Senator. Diana Whittington, your remarks.
Okay, hello. I agree with Senator Braun concerning the Dreamers, and also with Pat. I have students who are that were brought here as very young children, and are wonderful students are in ROTC program. They want to be a part of the, you know, well, they're proud citizens. And so I really do believe that if they're Kansas citizens, I mean, if they're in Kansas, then they have that right to have in-state tuition. So I'm all for that. I agree with what Senator Braun said about that. I denounce any type of racist organization. And in addition to that, I have seen personally a lot of injustice towards economic, it's more of an economic prejudice for people who are low, you know, in poverty, living in poverty. And I believe that they experience a lot of prejudice also. And so I feel that we could improve in so many areas, and that's one area. So anyway, I'll just leave it with that. But I do denounce any type of racist organization. Thank you.
Now we will turn to closing remarks. And please be brief. I would like to see that no more than 1 minute. And we'll start with Diana.
I want to thank you again for this opportunity, and I will be brief. I love Wyandotte County. I have lived here for many years, and I have taught here for 41 years. And during those 41 years of teaching here, I've raised my family and my grandkids here. I lived in the northeast part of Kansas City, Kansas for about 20 years, and now I live on the Turner side of in Kansas City, Kansas. And so while I was teaching, I had the opportunity to teach in almost all these schools. I was a traveling art teacher, and I taught in the majority of our elementary schools, and then also a lot of our middle and high schools. And so our community, it's a very diverse community, and it's a wonderful community. We've got a lot going for it. And so I am hoping that you will vote for me as your candidate for the state Senate and to represent the communities of Rosedale, Armourdale, Argentine, Turner, Muncie, Stony Point, and also Edwardsville. And thank you for your time.
Okay. Senator Petty, your remarks.
Thank you. If I get myself on here. Oh, finally get to see me. Thank you very much for having this forum. And I want to thank JD and Nora and Mary and Merle for your work, and for Kansas Community College for filming. One of the most important, I've had the honor to be the senator of the 6th District for for 2 terms now, and I'm looking forward to serving the 6th District for another full term of 4 years. I am a lifelong Dot. I've born and raised in Wyandotte County and proud of it. And I'm proud to work with and represent the people as I have now, really my whole life in Wyandotte County. Kansans and Wyandotte Countyans, they expect their legislators to practice civility. And I think that's going to be one of the most important things that we can do as we go back into this legislative session. We have to show that we respect the governor and are willing to work with her and with the legislators on either side of the aisle. We need to fully fund our schools, pass Medicaid expansion, rebuild our economic development programs, continue to have investments like we have going on right now in Wyandotte County, and to support the funding for our infrastructure so that we're supporting the funding for the Eizentara transportation plan. And we need to build on the Kansas work ethic. That's our foundation, our state. I think Kansans want to work. We just need to continue to give them the tools for that. And that does start with early childhood education. And lastly, I want to ask everyone for their vote, and I want to encourage you to vote. We have multiple ways to vote in Wyandotte County. Use the one that best suits you, but you can't make a difference. You can't use your voice if you do not vote. Every one of those methods is safe. And then the last thing I'm going to say is be a patriot, be patriotic, protect you and others, and wear a mask. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Now, Senator Braun, your closing remarks.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me today. I will say this, I'm a serious leader, and I've taken my job seriously. I have a 100% attendance record and a 100% voting record. I come in early, and the security guards often stop by my office to check why the lights aren't turned out. They're worried that I left the lights on and left the door unlocked. And that's because I'm still working for you in Wyandotte County. I'm the only legislator in Wyandotte County in the majority party. I am your conduit to success. I'll be my peers in Wyandotte County's conduit to success. I can work across the aisle. I've worked with Governor Kelly. I voted for 2 of her budgets, confirmed 60 of her 63 nominees. Wyandotte County needs someone in the majority party, and that's me. I'm the only one that can be the chairman of a committee. I'm the only one that can take you across the line. My focus is safety, health, education, and of course, prosperity. Don Ash, the county sheriff, endorsed me. The attorney general has endorsed me. In health, I've helped with safety net clinics. I'm going to continue to do that till I double it. In education, We're going to work with Kansas City Community College and the Pioneer campus over here to get those 55,000 jobs filled with technical jobs. And I am going to bring economic growth. It is a top priority for me to bring economic development to the county. So when I look at who can best serve Wyandotte County across the aisle and in the majority party, I'm your only choice. And I would appreciate your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Jeff Pittman, your closing remarks.
Thank you guys so much. This is great. I appreciate the questions. You know, we're at in this country a level of high division, whether it's on ethnic lines or political lines. And what we've seen at the Kansas Capitol is a high degree of partisanship. Now, I was happy in the House to be able to have carried bills and introduced bipartisan legislation. You can go check it out at kslegislature.org, and to actually have amendments pass and to work as a minority ranking minority on different committees. We worked in a bipartisan way towards things that helped Kansas. I don't believe that one party or the other should dictate whether you're effective, and that is not the case. One who brings ideas, one who brings a willingness to work. The last time I checked, it was the Kelly administration, and the governor does need supporters as she brings us through to a safe conclusion of this pandemic, both in our education approach, as well as we get this economy back working for us. I've consistently worked for the working folks. I'm backed by, like I said, the Fraternal Order of Police, the firefighters, operators, the 1290, the Labor Council, because they understand I know what it means for people who are out there working. I worked on behalf of a bipartisan coalition to get rid of that tax experiment by Braun to bring raises to teachers, which is why the KNEA supports me, and to bring raises to my local correction workers here in Northeast Kansas. I'm here to ask you for your vote. We can do better here in Kansas. We don't need to have lockups in terms of legislation. When we have supermajorities and we can't get anything done, there's a problem. And we need a change, and we need it November 3rd. So I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you, Jeff. Senator Haley, you have 1 minute for closing remarks. Senator?
Everyone else gets 2 or 3, but I'll just do it in 60 seconds or less, okay? I genuinely do want to thank you, Merle, JD, Mary, Elnora, and Randy for taking your time to pull this together. I've loved us being at the community college and other venues through the years, but as far if it took 2 hours or it takes 3 hours, my opponent is not with us tonight. I wish we could visit with him. His name is Sam Stillwell, and Sam is a wholly decent man. I've represented him and some of his values as well. He is just being funded to fill out the ticket this time, and I'd let him speak for himself. But we need to hear these issues. And if it's the 5 of us or the 10 of us here today, or 500, or anywhere in between, as someone who understands that we don't get enough information disseminations about candidates and what our values and our systems are, it's important for me to take the time that you take to plan and put this together. And for those who will tune in, to better educate ourselves about the issues we've confronted and discussed today. I thank you for that, sincerely. I know we're not at the college anymore, but maybe we will be next time. So I'm David Haley, and once again, asking for the support. I'm humbled by getting the high water votes from Democrats and Republicans and independents in Wyandotte County consistently, in season and out. And I'll try to live up to it every time. I really do, by being active in between. And I'll continue to do that if I'm reelected next month in November. Thank you all sincerely for making the time to make this happen again, and for tuning in for those who will.
Thank you to all who participated in the forum. The program has been taped and will be replayed on the Community College's public access channel and also YouTube. The forum is adjourned.